This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. This is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the iHeartRadio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, and, of course, our very own X-Zone Broadcast Network. This is a very special 2-hour show that we are tagging on today's show. We have two very fine people, known to one and all who have ever heard the expression UFO. I'm talking about the great-grandfather himself of ufology, Stanton T. Friedman, who is joining us from New Brunswick, and Kathleen Marden is also going to be joining us. Now, let's go ladies first. Kathleen is a leading UFO researcher, author, and lecturer. Her educational background in the social sciences has shaped her interest in the scientific part of ufology. She has lectured nationally and internationally and is a frequent guest on radio shows. Her expert testimony has been heard on The History, H2, Discovery, National Geographic, and Destination American channels, as well as news segments and documentaries. She is associated with the Mutual UFO Network as Director of Experiencer Research and the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, as a member of its board of directors and consultant to its research subcommittee. Many know her as the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, whose close encounter and UFO abduction in 1961 stirred worldwide interest. She researched the Hills controversial case, leaving no stone unturned to separate fact from fiction. This led to a new passion for the ufological truth and the publication of her books with nuclear physicist and scientist, ufologist Stanton T. Friedman, captured the Betty and Barney Hill UFO experience, Science Was Wrong, and Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucer. She is also the co-author of the Alien Abduction Files with Denise Stoner. She has expanded her work to include the investigation of contact with non-human entities, the perplexing phenomena related to it, the history of government involvement, and the investigation and study of UFOs and cover-up. You can purchase autographed copies of her books and read all about her upcoming conferences at www.kathleen-marden.com. And also joining us, snickering in the background when I kind of stumbled, I was going to say the great-grandfather of ufology, but I decided to cut that out, is the one and only Stanton T. Friedman, a great friend to the X-Zone, and, anybody who knows anything about UFOs, Stanton T. Friedman is synonymous with it. In fact, I understand in the new Webster Dictionary, when you turn to the page UFO, Stanton's picture is going to be there. After 58 years After 58 years of study and investigation, nuclear physicist Stanton T. Friedman has summarized his views about flying saucers. Now, he is convinced that the evidence is overwhelming that some UFOs are intelligently controlled extraterrestrial spacecraft, that the subject represents a cosmic Watergate. Oh, here we go. We had Nixon Watergate, Cosmic Watergate, and maybe Trump Watergate, who knows, that are no good objections to these conclusions, and that flying saucer reality and its cover-up is the biggest story of the past millennium. His lecture covers 5 large-scale scientific studies that most people are not aware of. He reviews the 4 major reasons leaders in the scientific and journalistic communities have not yet jumped onto the bandwagon. He covers landing traces and the star map seen by Betty Hill on board the flying saucer and the scientific investigation of it by Marjorie Fish. That work focuses on her 2 sun-like stars, Zeta 1 and Zeta 2 Reticuli, only 39.3 light years from Earth. I love how he put only there. You know, that's about 4 tanks of gas in a Hummer.
That's just down the street.
It's just down the street. Anyway, joining us now is Stanton T. Friedman and Ms. Kathleen Marden. And to the both of you, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you.
Delighted to be here.
Pleasure to be with you.
You know, after those 2 long intros, guess what? I got to take a commercial break. Can you believe it? So why don't we do this, X Zone Nation? Stanton and Kathleen are going to be with us for 2 hours tonight. And if you'd like to find out more about Kathleen, her website is kathleen-marden.com. And Stanton, what's your website?
www.stantonfriedman.com.
As if anybody in the UFO community doesn't know that one. We'll be back on the other side of this break as we start this very 2-hour edition of the X Zone with Stanton T. Friedman and Kathleen Marden. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, and we'll all return on the other side of this short break. Don't go away.
This is the X Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Hello, I'm Pete Marsh. With my daughter Justina, we will be presenting the new radio show, Too Good to Be True. If something seems too good to be true, it usually is. But with the help of Justina's amazing gifts, we're going to gain insight into questions that don't yet have complete answers. Have you wondered who built Stonehenge and for what reason? Why are crop circles found in the same region as Stonehenge and elsewhere? Are crop circles a hoax, or are they created with technologies that we have little knowledge of? Who built the pyramids in Egypt and also in other countries? How and why were they built? Was the Titanic switched with the Britannic as part of a gigantic insurance fraud, or for more insidious reasons? What caused the Tunguska event when trees were flattened over an 800 square mile area in Siberia? Will the new insights be too good to be true? Well, that will depend on what you are prepared to believe. Please join us as we start on this journey together. For more information on Too Good to Be True, visit www.xzbn.net.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Welcome back, everyone. This is a very special 2-hour edition of the X-Zone Radio Show. Our two guests are Kathleen Marden. She is a leading UFO researcher, author, and lecturer. And the one and only Stanton T. Friedman, the great-grandfather of ufology. To both of you, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And let me see, who would like to start? Well, Stanton's a real nice guy. He's in New Brunswick, and us Canadians are very polite when it comes to manners. So let's go to Kathleen first. Kathleen, your reputation as a researcher is built around the ET contact phenomena, and your books captured the Betty and Barney Hill UFO experience, Science Was Wrong, and the Alien Abduction Files. What made you decide to write about the information in your new book, Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers?
Well, I think I got a start on that when I was doing research to attempt to find Philip Klass's background. I wanted to know if he worked for a 3-letter agency. He had done such a terrific job disseminating disinformation about the Betty and Barney Hill case that I wanted to go to the American Philosophical Society in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and take a really good look at his archival collection to see what I could find. And when I went there, and I realized that there was a wealth of information in his files. I also found that Dr. Donald Menzel, another huge debunker, had his correspondence files there, and that Menzel was on the board of directors when he was alive at the American Philosophical Society. Dr. Edward Condon's correspondence files were there as well as correspondence files with Robert Lowe, who was a project coordinator with on the Colorado UFO study, along with Condon, who was the director. So I found far more information than I had anticipated that I would find, and ended up making several trips there and spent several days there. Ended up going home with probably 1,000 pages worth of documents that contained some very, very good information that gave me insight into what was actually going on with respect to the UFO cover-up and why this was occurring as well. And that's when Stanton and I got together and decided that since we had worked so well together on our first 2 books, we should write another book, Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers.
Stanton, were you surprised that Donald Menzel had actually been working for the NSA for 30 years?
It was the most surprising thing I found in all my ufological studies. I was very pleased to find it. I think it's the most significant finding I made. But yes, and it's proof. There are some people who think governments can't keep secrets and, we'll find out everything, the internet and all this sort of stuff. And the fact that I've not seen anything published anywhere that indicated anybody knew that Menzel, during his lifetime, of course, had, as he said to Jack Kennedy, President Jack Kennedy, a longer continuous association with the NSA of anybody. He did work for the Central Intelligence Agency and other classified groups. He was serving his country, which made me change my mind about him because I didn't like him while he was alive. I had one run-in with him at Harvard, and it was almost ludicrous. I invited him to my lecture, and when I got on the phone with him, I called early in the day, and it was kind of funny. "Oh, I know who you are," he said when I gave him my name. "I've seen letters and memos," and I don't know where the heck that came from. But his next line was a Lulu. "You can't be a scientist and believe in flying saucers," at which I laughed. And he didn't like being laughed at and started to rant a little bit. And I said, "Look, Dr. Menzel, I didn't call to argue with you. I called out of courtesy. I'm speaking on your campus, and I wanted to invite you to my lecture at 8 o'clock at whatever building it was in."
Right.
"Oh, well, of course I won't be there," he said. So nobody, it was such a shock to find out, and it was only incidentally that I had found out about his secret life, if you will. There was one letter in the files of Dr. Vannevar Bush, who was a top American scientist, ran various organizations and so forth, and a member of Majestic 12. And there was a letter to Dr. Bush from a lawyer in Boston, a pricey lawyer, one of these fancy guys, thanking him for his work in getting Donald Menzel cleared of the charges of disloyalty and people wanting to take away his security clearance. And I was bowled over. What security clearance? You don't need a security clearance to teach astronomy at Harvard. And certainly there were 2 issues of Sky and Telescope magazine dedicated to Menzel. Neither one of them mentioned all this classified activity. But that put me pointing in the direction. I called the legal outfit, and they told me that there was over 1,000 pages in Menzel's papers.
Wow.
So I called Harvard, and it took written permission from 3 different people. And I mention this not to brag, but so people know they can't just walk in and get access to some of this stuff. You got to make arrangements so that they'll have the material for you and so forth. 3 different people had us sign off, including his wife, on my looking at his papers. And then when I went there, I got a grant from the Fund for UFO Research and didn't know where to look, really, because I knew that his UFO materials were, some were in Denver, some were in Philadelphia and so forth. And there was a file JFK. And I wondered, what's that doing here? What's the connection? And when I got into that, very quickly I found the letter from Menzel to Kennedy after he'd been elected. And there's one area where I may be of assistance to you with regard to the large national security agency. And he went on from there. And that really shook me up because, Menzel had been around a long time, and nobody knew about this stuff. His involvement in highly classified activities, except during World War II, but the war was over long before we got into serious ufology, if you will. So, yes, I was definitely surprised. I developed an appreciation for the man. It turns out he helped train people for the NSA and code breakers. There's even an article in a professional journal about Menzel's contributions to what's the fancy word for code breaking?
Cryptography.
Cryptography. There you go.
Yeah. cryptology. There was an article in a professional journal that referred to my article because I had exposed that years before. Mendel's contributions to cryptology. And so it was very good to find that out. I mean, look, I worked under security in the U.S. for 14 years. Unlike some people, I am absolutely convinced that secrets can be kept.
Mm-hmm.
I helped keep some. And so I still get people, I've had people say, look, in today's world with the internet and stuff like that, governments can't keep secrets. That's nonsense. You need it.
Sure.
You have to have a need to know, as well as a clearance to get access to data. And nobody's publishing classified papers on the internet, as far as I know, anyway.
So tell me, Stan, has anyone ever asked you if you are actually an agent for any of the government agencies?
A couple of people have wondered who I was working for, and I wish I had another source of income, I tell them, but no, I didn't work for anybody.
Oh, yes, you do, Stan. We found out that you actually do. You work for the people. That's who you work for, my friend.
Okay, I like that. That sounds good. Well, it's funny. Working in industry, I did develop an appreciation for security. And I shock some people now when they say, well, don't you want everything declassified? And I say, no. Why not? I say, because there is a national security aspect.
Yeah.
Suppose we have learned some interesting technology from recovery of crashed flying saucers at Roswell, the planes, Aztec, etc. Should we put that on the table so that the Russians can add it to what they have learned? I don't think so.
Yeah.
This would be the fanciest weapons delivery and defense systems you could ever build if you could copy flying saucers. So I'm in favor of sticking to the rules about security.
Do you remember I'm sorry.
Go on.
Yeah. Do you remember the NSA whistleblower hacker? What was his name? Campbell?
No.
Anyway, years ago, this guy came out with some really strange stuff about NASA and UFOs. Well, today in one of the British tabloids, he was saying that the United States has actually a fleet of battle cruisers in outer space.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is today?
Yeah, this is today, and I'll try and find the article and send it to you, Stan, because I thought you'd get a great kick out of it. It was like...
Oh, I will. Well, one of the things about security is it's very easy for people to make up stories and spread them around. And how can you tell the truth from the fiction? You don't have access. So stories sound good, and there's a lot of baloney out there. Sometimes I think of it as being a delicatessen instead of, a 4-star hotel.
Sure.
5-star. But, it's you need to appreciate the fact that we live in a world in which people collectively on this planet are spending $1 trillion this year on things military. Now, some people would say that's a sin when there are starving children and all kinds of problems that need solutions.
That's right.
And so I would agree with that. But we have to recognize that that trillion is being spent. And I noticed that in the last few weeks there's been talk about Trump's budget. And it looks like you cut anything that helps kids and the poor and all those things. And up the military. How big was that contract with Saudi Arabia? I mean, a huge amount.
$110 billion.
That's such a large amount of money. And
but what?
It kind of sickens me on one level.
Right.
What must aliens think of us? A primitive society whose major activity is tribal warfare.
Yeah. Well, maybe they think that the first thing that they should do when they land is open up a boutique that sells Trump hair. I don't know. Stan, always great talking to you. It was an extreme pleasure meeting you at the Alien Convention in Brantford. My wife thinks you are the most charming gentleman she has ever met. And you know what? I have to agree with you. You are very gracious, and even though I haven't had the opportunity yet meeting you, Kathleen, we have talked over the years. And
Yes.
you are a very fine lady, and I really appreciate the both of you being on here tonight. And we're going to take another commercial break. We'll be back on the other side of the news with Kathleen Marden and Stanton T. Friedman. Exonation, for more information on Kathleen, her website is www.kathleen-marden.com. And for Stanton Friedman, it's very simple. Just like the name, the brand, the man, StantonFriedman.com.
Dreams are our personal gateways into infinite wisdom. Don't miss shamanic counselor and indigenously trained dream decoder Sandra Corcoran's inspiring book, Shamanic Awakening Between the Dark and the Daylight. This remarkable work chronicles Sandra's 35 years of experience with diverse wisdom keepers and her initiations throughout the Americas and across the British Isles, Turkey, Greece, and Egypt. Sandy's knowledge of symbology, psychology, and myth influenced her dream blog and workshops. Sandy offers private tarot readings, international journeys, a meditative CD, as well as her book, Shamanic Awakening, to encourage you as you navigate this earth walk, creating a deeper connection to yourself and all that is. Find this and more at Sandy's website, starwalkervisions.com.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
How would you like to be able to read other people's minds? Well, the next best thing is here. When you know how to read a person's name, you know how the person thinks, feels, and behaves. Each letter in our name holds a key to unlock our true essence. Our name contains both our gifts and challenges in this lifetime. Mnemology science discovers personality secrets hidden in the placement of the letters of our names, including the first and last impression people remember about us. Sharon shows us how to interpret the arrangement of letters as outlined in her book, Know the Name, Know the Person. Sharon Lynn Wyeth created mnemology science after 18 years of research and testing her theories, and has supported thousands of people around the world in understanding themselves and others better. You'll enjoy Sharon's unique teachings as she shares her system to learn the gifts behind your given birth name. Even if you don't like your birth name, there are jewels in this book. If you're thinking of changing your name, ready to name your child, or wanting to get along better with others, this is the book for you. If you'd like to improve your relationships and change your life for the better, get the book today, Know the Name, Know the Person, or visit www.knowthename.com. That's www.knowthename.com.
Hello, I'm Justina Marsh, and with my dad Pete, we are going to present a new show called Too Good to Be True. Together, we are aiming to discover more truths about this world and beyond. Do you have unanswered questions about the world? Do you ever wonder about aliens, conspiracy theories, or the universe? There are many shows discussing subjects such as pyramids or UFOs, but we want to relay this information based on our own research, including from spiritual means. Hopefully, listeners will be helped with their own beliefs and will appreciate the psychic insights that add to the previous research and information. We both look forward to sharing this insight and beginning this journey with our listeners. Visit xzbn.net for more information about when to listen.
Welcome back, everyone. Kathleen Marden and Stanton Friedman are two very special guests for this special 2-hour edition of the X-Zone Radio Show with yours truly, Rob McConnell. And Kathleen, recently you've been speaking more about distortion in the Betty and Barney Hill case. What evidence do you have of a cover-up, and who was involved?
First, the Air Force was involved, and that is in the Project Blue Book records. The report states very clearly that Betty and Barney described a vehicle ascending and descending rapidly. They said that after it swooped down, it was as large as a dinner plate at arm's length. And remember, excuse me just a minute. I'm sorry, this phone was on.
There is no problem,
and it just
Kathleen.
keeps going on and on. They said that after it swooped down, it was the size of a dinner plate at arm's length. And remember that the full moon can be covered by an aspirin at arm's length. This was a very, very large craft that they saw. And they also stated that it caused buzzing sounds on the trunk of their car that caused them to have a tingling sensation pass through their bodies and for the car to vibrate. So I found evidence that although that was in the Project Blue Book report stated by Betty and Barney, the Air Force then stated there was no lateral or vertical movement noted. They said there was no evidence presented to indicate the object was due to other than natural causes. What natural cause will swoop down on a vehicle and cause these buzzing sounds? They went on to say that it was probably an advertising searchlight in a desolate area during the off season where there are no movie theaters around, there are no shopping centers. This is out in the wilderness.
It is.
Or even the planet Jupiter as the result of a strong temperature inversion. Well, I had to follow up on that. I knew that the rest was a lie, but I wanted to find out if there really was a strong temperature inversion in that area on that night. So I contacted a veteran meteorologist, and asked him to go to the U.S. Weather Archives to find out if that was even correct. So not only did he go there, but he asked 2 other senior veteran meteorologists to look at the archival records as well. And this is what they wrote back to me. Quote, "The light east airflow that night would have caused subsidence warming, just the opposite of an inversion as claimed by the Air Force." Something else that I found that I felt was very interesting was there was a study done in 1974 at the Maxwell Air Force Air Command and Staff College. It was a research study done by 2 military officers, and it was titled, "Should the U.S. Air Force Reopen Project Blue Book?" And they made statements with regard to the Hill case. That was one of the cases that they covered in their paper.
Wow.
And they said the Air Force's explanation on the Hill case turned out to be, quote, "almost as erratic as the radar and visual sightings themselves." Project Blue Book ended their investigation of the Betty and Barney Hill sighting and the corresponding radar sightings without ever recontacting the Hills. This is a particularly disturbing aspect of the sighting. They said the official Air Force release concludes by stating that no evidence was presented to indicate that the object was due to other than natural causes, but makes no mention of the radar tracking. And they went on to state that the radar shimmering originally reported to the press, that was the Boston Herald Traveler when the story was released as the result of a violation of confidentiality in 1965. They said it was much more than a shimmer indicating an air mass. It was a bona fide sighting, and it is not clear why Project Blue Book purposely withheld information to the press regarding the Pease Air Force radar sighting. So we have here from the very beginning a cover-up by the Air Force. And it was very interesting. In my research for our book, Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers, I read Major, who was then a captain, Hector Quintanilla's autobiography. It was an unpublished autobiography. And I discovered that in that time frame, Donald Menzel, the great debunker, was working as an unpaid consultant for Project Blue Book to debunk these cases.
Was that part of his venue as working for the NSA?
I'm not sure.
He didn't say so at the time.
Yeah.
I did find evidence that back in 1952, he met with 6 members of the Air Force at the Pentagon. And at that time, he asked for their cooperation in his 2 debunking articles that he had written. The Air Force at that time refused to cooperate with him. And then he offered his services as an unpaid consultant to Project Blue Book. And they also rejected his offer. And so he stormed out of the office at that point. But we can see that somewhere along the way, they took him seriously and asked for his assistance in debunking these cases.
Unbelievable.
I should mention that his first book was translated into Russian. This is in the early 50s. Let's not have those Russians know what we're doing. That makes any sense about flying saucers.
Is he in relation to General Flynn?
I don't think so.
All right, that was bad. I'm sorry. By the way, I was mistaken. The name of the hacker was not Campbell. We're talking about Gary McKinnon.
Oh, that hacker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he's come out and said that the U.S. government is hiding the fact that they have currently in outer space deep space warships. Now, that in itself is a little funny, but I had a guest on the show not that long ago who said that he was a gunner on board one of these ships, and that's another story for another time, Stanton.
Yeah. The MUFON conference this year in Las Vegas is focusing on the secret space program.
Maybe.
One wonders whether... I've always been rather dubious about this. Putting stuff up in outer space is a big undertaking. Costs a lot of money, takes a lot of people, a lot of facilities. So it's not something easily covered up. And one would think that the Russians would have said something if they detected our guys and, what are those guys doing out there? Kind of thing. But I don't know whether that's true or not. But, McKinnon has said a lot of things. And how do you get at the truth about the secret space program? We get people standing up who don't provide evidence.
Yeah.
And that makes it difficult. You got to believe them, I guess. And I have a big gray basket, not black, not white.
Yeah.
Maybe, give me evidence and I'll believe you. But don't just tell me and say you expect me to believe it just because you said so.
What about you, Kathleen? Where do you stand on the secret space possibility?
I think I've been quoting Stan on that, saying that it's in my gray basket. It sounds unbelievable, but I'm willing to listen if there truly is evidence that this is real. I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist, and I know that there is a great deal of false information being disseminated, and people who are outright lying for the attention that they get.
Yeah.
But I'm the jury is out for me, and I'm going to be attending the MUFON Symposium, and I will be in the audience with my son, in fact, listening to all of this, and then I'll be able to form an opinion.
I was listening to one of the major news networks, not one of the cable news networks. Mind you, today there's no difference. They're all going for ratings, and they don't care how they get them. And one of the commentators says, this fake news thing is making us sound as hokey as the UFO community, who, in my opinion, he said, are responsible for the invention of fake news.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's baloney.
It is.
It's...
Well, let me give you an example of something that reflects on this. General Carol Bolender, an Air Force general, an engineer, and he worked on the Lunar Excursion Module, which was a very important politically as well as mechanically system.
Yeah.
Because the Russians had been really beating the heck out of us in space, so we got to land on the moon to beat them out. Anyway, General Bolender, because Ed Condon had said to the Air Force in his final report, he said, we should close Project Blue Book. It's not really contributing anything to science or intelligence work or so forth. So we didn't get Bolender's... He wrote a memo, which resulted in the closure of Project Blue Book at the end of 1969, I guess it was. And in this memo, he said a couple of significant things. We didn't see it until 10 years later. I think it was released inadvertently with a pile of other stuff to Robert Todd, who made hundreds of requests. Anyway, in the memo, he says, reports of UFOs which could affect national security are made in accordance with JNAP 146 and Air Force Manual 55-11. JNAP is Joint Army-Navy Air Force publication, and are not part of the Blue Book system. Now, the Air Force had always said Blue Book was it.
Yeah.
So that was an incredible statement. And then 2 paragraphs later, he said, if we close Project Blue Book, the public won't have a place to report sightings. However, as previously noted, reports which could affect national security will continue to be investigated using the procedures designed for that purpose. Another extraordinary claim. And, this is an Air Force general. I called Bolender. As far as I know, I'm the only guy in the UFO community who's talked to him. And he was very cordial. And, I stress I'd had a clearance for 14 years, and I read his memo with great interest and so forth. And I said, it sounds to me like you're saying that there are 2 separate communication channels here. One for reports which could affect national security. I mentioned to him that I had just a few weeks earlier heard about somebody told me he was at a base where a saucer went down the runway, and it was a base at which nuclear weapons were stored. And I said, I presume this would be a matter of national security, and he agreed. And I said, then if my wife and I were driving along and happened to see a UFO, big deal, happens all the time. So 2 separate channels, right? Yes, he agreed with me. Now, that raises the obvious question. So where's the good stuff going?
All right, let's answer that when we come back from this break. Exonation, okay. Kathleen Marden, www.kathleen-marden.com, and Stanton T. Friedman, StantonFriedman.com, are our special guests for the special edition, 2 hours of the X Zone. I'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Are you curious? Do you want to learn more about how the world works and have fun at the same time? Study coincidences with me, Dr. Bernie Beitman, M.D., on my Connecting with Coincidence radio show, here on the XZBN network. Listen to Jungians theorize, statisticians randomize, true believers evangelize, while I categorize. I dance to the rhythm of coincidences. People who experience me see more of them. Maybe something on the show matches a thought in your mind. Let us know. Expand your mind to the weirdness happening around you. Synchronicity spoken here, there, and everywhere. For more information, put Connecting with Coincidence in your search engine and find my website, my social media sites, and my blog.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
True healing must address 4 levels: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, for us to live joyful and productive lives. We tend to treat 3 of the 4, leaving the spiritual languishing. If you're tired of the same dysfunctional patterns cropping up in your life, Soul Balancing is for you. Trixie Phelps, owner and founder of Soul Balancing, is a naturally gifted energy healer trained in numerous esoteric forms, including shamanism. Trixie has created a powerful modality that safely and effectively clears your energetic field. A Soul Balancing session can remove interference, heal trauma, and restore your hope. Contact Trixie for a life-changing long-distance session today, www.soulbalancing.world. There's a legend shared by many indigenous cultures of a time when the nations were cast to the 4 corners of the world. Each nation was given a body of sacred knowledge that held a different portion of the truth to preserve. True reality could not be known until all the nations reunited, combining the information. If a single one was missing, the world could not be reborn and darkness would prevail. The Science of Magic Radio is dedicated to reuniting the sacred knowledge. With the understanding, none of us has all the answers, but together we can open new perceptions and possibilities. Through our combined vision, the world can be reborn into a place where darkness no longer prevails. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic daily on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, or visit us at thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Stanton Friedman and Kathleen Marden are special guests for this special 2-hour edition of the X-Zone. Stanton, you were telling us a little bit of a story about the gentleman that you were trying to get, what is more important, what is national security and what isn't, and how did that end?
Well, we were in agreement that there is stuff that we're not hearing about.
Yeah.
And how much more official can you get than the guy who wrote the memo that closed Project Blue Book? I was very favorably impressed with him. As you can imagine, working on the lunar excursion module, as he put it to me, at least when we finished that, I didn't have to work 12-hour days, but there was an awful lot riding on the successful landing on the moon, politically.
Sure. And least of all, bringing the astronauts back home safe and sound.
Yeah, and so the lunar excursion module was an important part of that. So this was a highly trusted individual, and I was very favorably impressed with him, and disappointed, as far as I know. Nobody else has talked to him. But that raises the obvious question. So where did the good stuff go? And people ask me about MJ-12. Well, you don't believe in MJ-12. That's all baloney, isn't it? I've heard that line. And I say, no. If you read my book, Top Secret Magic, MAJIC, because that was the security notation, I make a good case that there really was an Operation Majestic 12. And to me, it makes sense that there would be, because it's only the government that has access to the fancy equipment that can be used. One, to analyze wreckage. We're not sending that out to the... hey, you take it down to the lab down at the corner, will you, and find out what's going on here? You know, I don't think that's what we were doing. But also, there's instrument data. Airplanes chasing UFOs, electromagnetic signatures, rate of change, of acceleration, all this kind of stuff. And only the government has that kind of equipment to make that. So you don't need Army, Navy, Air Force, each doing their own thing. You need a central clearinghouse, just as it says in the Truman Forrestal memo. And to me, as somebody who's worked on sophisticated, advanced research and development activities, it makes sense. You'd have a central place where you have people who look at all the wreckage, so you don't throw it around a little here, a little there, a little someplace else. You want to put stuff together. But that raises the question that when you ask about, do I think there's a secret fleet of vehicles up there, I can't say I can prove there isn't, because I'm absolutely certain that there is classified work going on that we don't know about that relates to outer space. Yeah. How much? I don't know. They've done a good job of covering it up. And, there is something else here, too. Class, to illustrate his failure to be objective. That's a polite way of saying that. When he challenged me on one of the documents.
The infamous $1,000 check.
Yes. And it was worse than I had really thought at the beginning, because I didn't know until after that was resolved that he had never been to the Eisenhower Library. I spent weeks there, literally, and here he is making a claim that it sounds absurd on its face when you think about it. The National Security Council only used elite type on their memos. He had 9, and they were all in elite type. Well, when I did a lot of checking, it turns out the Eisenhower Library has 250,000 pages of NSC materials. So the notion that they were all done on the same typewriter is frankly absurd.
Yeah.
But and his challenge to me, the guy's got chutzpah, nerve. He's going to provide. He'll pay me $100 each for every genuine memo done in the same size and style type. And never having been at the Eisenhower Library. And so my next trip there, of course, first I went to my files and found 20 pages real quick of stuff done in pica type. Didn't meet all his criteria. He accepted 2 of them because there were other wrinkles that had to be filled, the signatures and so forth. But the fact that he had never been there, when I went to the library, and I found 14 immediately. It's easy to tell the difference between pica and elite. And I sent him copies and an invoice for $1,000, because that's the limit. He sent $100 each up to 10. And he sent me a check. And then he got very angry when I published a copy of his check in the book. And it's in our book, Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers, isn't it, Kathy? I think
yes, it is.
And you said he had chutzpah, huh?
Well, to make a challenge like that when you haven't looked at any of the materials, so it does raise the question, who was he working for? Now, he always made a big thing about he doesn't work for any 3-letter agency. Maybe it's a different agency. Operation Majestic 12, that's not a 3-letter agency.
No, it's not. You had talked a bit about Edward Condon. It seems that both you, Stanton and Kathleen, have come down hard on the guy. Did you ever have any interaction with him?
Well, I had some correspondence with him. And apparently that's what he sent to Menzel and to other people. But, because he said things... Look, he made it sound when the press release came out about the Condon report like there was just nothing to it. But when the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics set up a UFO subcommittee, and one of the things they did was evaluate the Condon report, they concluded that you could come to the opposite conclusions from Dr. Condon based on the data in the report, and that any phenomena with 30% unexplainable is certainly worth scientific investigation. So, what I don't understand is this. Condon was a darn fine scientist. He was elected to the National Academy of Sciences in the 40s. He made contributions to science. He was not a dilettante, in other words. And he did have trouble with the House Un-American Activities Committee, and he didn't believe that the government, that science should be subverted by security, so to speak. So he's much harder to understand whether somebody had something on him. I mean, he didn't investigate any of the sightings, really. Didn't talk to any of the witnesses. And he said something that this really threw me. Kathy knows it by heart, or has in front of her anyway. He said something that seems so stupid for him with his background about not being able to, no aliens would be able to come here for how long, Kathy?
He said it's safe to assume that no intelligent life outside our solar system has any possibility of visiting Earth any time in the next 10,000 years.
Yeah,
well, that's rather...
It's ridiculous
it is.
When you think about it. I mean, look back 200 years, and he says 10,000. That's absurd. And coming from him is particularly absurd, because I respect his scientific achievements, and so that raises the question: did somebody have something on him? Was he doing something he was supposed to do to get the world off this question of UFOs? I don't know, but it bothered me, frankly, because Condon I can understand. I mean, Menzel I can understand. He was working for the NSA. I had done classified work for the CIA. So, okay, he's somebody who knows which side his bread is buttered on, so to speak. And he even mentioned in his unpublished autobiography that he received more in retirement from his non-Harvard work than from his Harvard work, which tells you he was making a lot of money outside. He was busy. But why Condon did what he did, I don't know, and it would take a psychiatrist, I think, to figure that out, or some evidence that we haven't yet uncovered.
And Condon was strongly opposed to funding for the scientific study of UFOs. His documents, his correspondence, all support that idea. And I was very distressed by the letter I found that he wrote to the president of McGraw-Hill Publishing Company, recommending Philip Klass as the go-to guy for the mainstream media, stating that they should not go to someone who, like Professor James McDonald, and we all know that James McDonald was probably the greatest scientific ufologist ever to have lived. But he said who would not make the foibles of Professor James McDonald, that Philip Klass was the excellent investigator who knew the truth. And then for many, many more years, Philip Klass was the go-to guy. and disseminated nothing but disinformation to the mainstream media to cover up the UFO presence.
All right, guys, please stand by. We've got to end this segment this hour. Exonation will be back on the other side of the news with another hour with our two very special guests this hour, Kathleen Marden and Stanton T. Friedman. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.